If you had one shot or one opportunity to seize everything you ever wanted in one moment, would you capture it or just let it slip?
Yo. His palms are sweaty, knees weak, arms are heavy. There's vomit on his sweater already. Mom's spaghetti, he's nervous, but on the surface he looks calm and ready to drop bombs. But he keeps on forgetting what he wrote down. The whole crowd goes so loud, he opens his mouth, but the words won't come out. He's choking how? Everybody's choking now. The clock's run out, time's up, over, loud. Snap back to reality. Oh, there goes gravity. Oh, there goes rabbit. He choke. He's so mad, but he won't give up. Daddies, he know he won't have it. He knows his whole back to these ropes. It don't matter, he's dope. He knows that, but he's broke. He's so stagnant, he knows when he goes back to this mobile home, that's when it's back to the lab again, yo. This old rhapsody better go back to this moment and hope it don't pass him.
Listen, we can talk about the flag, but let's talk about... Wait.
And good morning, everybody. Welcome to Trending in the AM right here on DSM Media. We're live, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. You know the drill. Retweet, share, thumbs up, subscribe, follow on all social media platforms. The more people that see the show, the bigger the show can get, the more interactive we can get with you. And the best way to get interactive is on the Facebook and YouTube pages of DSM. Put your questions, comments, thoughts, anything about the topics that we got on the board today. We can talk about them. We got a jam-packed show. We're going to talk Phillies. Lost last night, 11-9. Got some interesting questions and thoughts and things to discuss about that game. And we got a little fun little conversation that I want to bring up. I don't listen to sports talk radio often. I really don't. When I preach, listen to podcasts, turn off the dial, turn up YouTube. I really do mean that. But I was in my wife's car yesterday for a little bit, and I was driving that, and I turned on one of the dial channels, and they had an interesting topic. Philadelphia sports trades, where we got the guy 1 year too late, and it was they based it around the James Harden. Maybe if we got James Harden a year sooner, things would have been different. So I think it's an interesting topic. I've got a really interesting one to bring to the table, and I'll bring it up with Jason and Mark here in a second, and we'll see what they think. Mark Moscatelli down below there, looking like Princess Leia with his little gamer headset. Good morning.
My earbuds broke, so I have to improvise. Thank you for pointing that out, Phil.
Hey, no problem, Princess. And then, of course, Jason Voorhees at Eflin3651. There you go. You unmute your mic there. How you doing, Jason?
Fabulous.
That's good. See, now that was a better response than Monday when you're like, "What's up?" So good job. So we're improving here in the morning, gentlemen. Third day in a row with everybody. So everybody's getting a little better here. So Phillies lost last night, 11-9, and offensive explosion. It was really weird. I saw a tweet yesterday that everybody was on the Marlins money line and everybody was on the over 8.5 runs. And I'm like, yeah, that's probably, but why was everybody on the Marlins? Well, Marlins came out. We beat Sandy Alcantara, their ace, one of the best pitchers in baseball. Then we come out yesterday. And yes, like Jason pointed out yesterday, their pitcher yesterday wasn't as bad as the numbers said, but, still a guy that we should have been able to do a little bit better on. But Rhys Hoskins had a huge game again. Rhys Hoskins is on fire. But I want to start with the starting pitcher, Zach Eflin. And I know you guys are going to tell me I sound redundant because I've been talking about Zach Eflin for a while. And I know after the first inning, he pitched pretty decently. He gave up 4 runs in the first inning and didn't give up another run the rest of his 6 innings he pitched. But it just goes to show that Zach Eflin and his leash that he gets from the fans is a little unnecessary. It's a little long. And look, I'm not saying you could bench him. I'm not saying you move him, you don't trade him. There's not much you could do there. But I think it's time for people to realize Zach Eflin is exactly who Zach Eflin is. He's a number 5 starter, and that is it. Oh, don't worry, Big Ed. We are going to get to the closer conversation here after we talk Zach Eflin for sure. So, Mark, we'll start with you. Zach Eflin, he is what he is right now, and he put us behind last night right from the get-go.
Yeah, but he settled down afterwards, right? And wasn't his pitch count not crazy when they pulled him? I don't know what.
No, 80 pitches after the 6th inning.
You couldn't give him a 7th inning? I mean, if
I didn't watch a lot of that part of the game because I was hosting my golf podcast, but But I look more at the fact that he set us up for failure right from the get-go by dropping a 4 spot in the first inning.
Yeah, but the team was able to manufacture runs back too. Like, have some faith in your lineup. I know it gets demoralizing at times where where you have to constantly climb out of the hole, and it gets harder and harder to do if each game is like that. But the relief pitchers that you're putting out there aren't helping matters. I mean, Familia should be DFA'd after last night. I mean, there's no reason why he should continue to grab a ball in a meaningful situation in a baseball game for the Phillies. And yes, Eflin is what he is. If that's all he is in your eyes as a fifth starter, then your expectation is he's going to give up 4 runs in the first inning anyway. So if that's the case, like, you need to make sure that your rest of your game is situated where you're putting the right pitchers in the right roles and getting him out there, if he doesn't put up the 4 runs in the first inning before he really starts to, go off the rails. I mean, if you're telling me that's what he is and that's what he did last night, then it shouldn't come as any surprise.
People think he's better than that, and that's the problem that I'm trying to get at. People think he's this, top end of the rotation kind of guy.
Who thinks he's better? Who thinks he's better than it?
You go through social media and the analytic young crowd that talks and debates and discusses baseball on social media. They got his FWAR, his XPPYZ, XY, ERA, his people are like, he's really good. It's just a matter of bad luck with Zach Eflin. And that's what they say.
He needs an exorcism though, because he's got a lot of bad luck. And I must follow older people on Twitter because I don't see what you're seeing. So I think he is what he is, and I think there's a lot of people that feel the same way. He is a bottom of the rotation pitcher and nothing more. And as a bottom of the order rotation, I don't think he's that bad. If you're expecting him to be in the 1 or 2 slot, that'll never happen. And even a number 3, I think, is questionable. But a 4 or 5, roll him out every 5th day. Skip his spot in the rotation when there's an off day. That's the type of pitcher he should be.
Jason, I saw you smiling through. I know we can't say it on the air, but me and you, we're thinking of specific people on Twitter that think Zach Eflin is probably this great pitcher. Without saying their name, remind Mark that there are people that think Zach Eflin is this, awesome starting pitcher.
All right. So, yeah, there are people out there, Mark. Phil is not making this up. He's not exaggerating. With that being said, I mean, I think the way that you put it out there by saying Zach Eflin is what he is, I think the majority of baseball fans realize that. I mean, anybody that's smart realizes that Zach Eflin is not going to become an ace at this point. I'm pretty sure that the guy has hit his plateau. He's the thing with Zach Eflin that's frustrating is he'll show like brief signs of like being a dominant stud. Like previously, maybe it was 1 or 2 starts ago where he went 8 innings or 7 innings, had a shutout. 7 had the most strikeouts of this season for him. But I'm looking at his track record. I mean, he started with the Padres at 18 years old. He was obviously pretty high up in their as far as their prospects. And then, obviously came to the Phillies in a trade. And it's pretty much been the same thing. I mean, I'm looking at it. He really has not had great numbers. His best year, he was in 2019. In 2018, he was 11-8, and he had a 4.36 ERA. So to me, that's like middle of the pack. He's at best 3rd, 4th starter at best.
Don't ever put 3rd starter next to his name.
The deal that this is what I would do. I mean, you want to talk about, we could talk about and debate where Zach Eflin belongs on the pecking order, whether he's a first, second, third, fourth, or fifth starter. I don't think that's really the important thing. The important thing is are we going to continue to go with Zach Eflin in this rotation? Is he good enough to be in this rotation? And C, what do you do if he's not? I already brought up and proposed earlier, I believe it was last week's show, that Zach Eflin could be a guy that you could use to trade maybe in a package to get another starting pitcher. Because the thing is Zach Eflin, to me, even though he's not consistent, he still has those flashes. And around the league, he could be perceived as an asset as far as some team might say, oh, well, he needs a change of scenery. But I don't think he's anything more than a fourth or fifth starter, as you guys have mentioned. And I'm just at the point where I don't really get upset about it anymore because I've already said that the Phillies whether or not we could say that their starting pitching has been a strength this year. And it has. Overall, their Phillies starting pitching has been a strength. If you look at where they rank among the teams in the league. But if you take away Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola from the rotation, it's pretty much average to below average because, I don't think, Ranger Suarez, I'm not ready to give up on the guy yet, but I'm not ready to say that, or anoint him as this stud like that a lot of people were saying that he was coming into this year. I mean, it's so easy to jump the gun on people when they have a good year, in their rookie season. It's very easy to do that and make that mistake. But I'm one of those people. I usually try to be more patient, and I know a lot of people get frustrated with my takes on here because I kind of sometimes go overboard. But I own that. Like Bryce Harper, I totally own that, and I'm the opposite. Like Bryce Harper is the best player in baseball. He really, and that's not a stretch. I mean, right now, if you look over the last 162 games, Bryce Harper has been the best player in Major League Baseball. So that's a fact. And I was wrong about the guy.
All right, so Zach Eflin's not as big of a problem. It's obviously Corey Knebel and the bullpen as a whole. Then that's the bigger problem then right now, right?
I absolutely believe that the bullpen is still the biggest area of weakness, and it's rearing its ugly head once again.
So Zach Eflin gets us behind. Our offense battles back. We were down 4-0. We went back up 8-4, and then we lose 11-9 because Familia and Corey Knebel. I mean, I know Corey Knebel didn't give up an earned run last night. Now, I did not watch the ninth inning because, again, like I said, I was filming Fairway to Heaven last night. So obviously an error occurred that caused him to be unearned runs. But Corey Knebel pitched the ninth inning yesterday and did not get a single out. I don't care how many errors happen. As the closer, you cannot pitch in the ninth inning and not record a single out against the Marlins.
His pitch count was 11 balls to 3 strikes when I looked. I mean, you can't have that. You can't have that. And going back to Eflin, I'm looking at his stats right now. He's got his best ERA since 2020. It's a sub-4 ERA. He's on average with his strikeouts per 9, and he's significantly reduced his walks and hits per innings pitched. It's his best it's ever been. So to your point, the problem is not the starting pitching. The problem is what happens after that starter comes out. And Familia, my God, like he gave up a 3-run homer, and all of a sudden now you're screwed. Now all that hard work that you did to get a leg up on the Marlins got totally wasted by that guy. And Knebel was terrible too. And the other thing that really hurt him was their defense. And we've talked about this. We've talked about their relief pitching and their defense are going to struggle all year. Hoskins should have caught that ball. JT Realmuto should have caught that ball. If it hits your glove, you got to catch it. Combine all that stuff in there, and you're going to. This was a Joe Girardi game, unfortunately. It should have been a win. It should have been a win, and unfortunately, it wasn't.
Yeah. So the question is, what do we do with this bullpen? Because obviously, you're going to talk about Appel or Mark Apple or whatever his name is, and the other guy that's down there in AAA.
Morales.
Morales, yeah, him, yeah. You can't cut Familia, but you can limit the usage of him, I guess, in certain situations. Sir Anthony, he gave up a run last night, but at what point does he get that bump to the ninth inning? What is the answer? I mean, honestly, I've been talking about it for a while that I kind of feel like the Phillies aren't going to really be buyers or sellers. They're just going to roll with what they got this year because as far as they fell behind, being back at 500 and back in wild card contention, it's kind of like a bonus at this point that there's not a need to make a huge, bold move at this point because one bold move is not going to get them into major contention category right now. So do you just run with what you got and do you attack? You use that AAA farm system, those young guys that you got down there. I mean, he's not young, Appel is it Appel or Apple. I never know.
I think it's Mark Apple, and he's 30 years old.
He's not young.
He was a touted prospect. That whatever he lost his way, but he's been really pitching. I mean, honestly, lights out. He's got like a sub-2 ERA, I think, or something like that. He's had 14 appearances. I think he's got like 4 wins on his belt. Like he's doing well. He's doing exactly what a middle reliever should be doing. And when you see all these guys fail, and dude, I want to touch on Bilotti, who had a subpar outing. And I was doing some research on him. We talk about character of our athletes and whatnot. And I don't know all the specifics, but did you guys know that he was arrested for vehicular homicide back in 2010, 2011 and did time?
So hold on a second. I want to backtrack on you there for a second. I saw that post in the group chat, and that was a wiki. Did you go and double check that? Because wiki is very easily edited and very easily faked, and there's a lot of false information on wiki. Now I didn't go double check it because
I'm a non-fact checking kind of guy. I swear by wiki, but I mean, if there's any truth to that, and you're talking about Odubel Herrera and he shouldn't be on the team, why would you add to that? Would have somebody like that, and he's already had his second or third.
Can I jump in here?
You can.
What are we really doing? Are we really talking about Mark Bilotti? No offense, but Mark Bilotti is the least of my issues with this.
Yeah, but why would you sign a middle-of-the-road guy like that?
He's a guy that he doesn't belong on this team, and we know that. But
he is on the team. That's the problem.
Yeah, but Mark, once again, we could start bringing up guys from the minor leagues, but this has been an issue for 5 years now. The bullpen. The problem is not just the fact of a lack of talent. It's the Phillies. It's almost like the Phillies treat relief pitchers like the Eagles used to treat wide receivers. It's like almost like let's just go to the bottom of the barrel every year. And once again, they did it again. They signed Knebel, and a lot of these analytics people were like, "Oh, Knebel." He had one good year as a closer. One. Okay, talk about a guy that we're moving forward in the show, we're going to go through an issue of trades or guys that we got maybe a year or two late. Well, Familia fits that bill perfectly. Yours Familia used to be an absolute dominating stud closer. Well, we sign him, and he's like way past his prime. He's horrible now. Okay, we did it with David Robertson. We signed the guy. He played one game for the Phillies. We signed him to $40 million. I mean, this is a problem consistently every year. We continue to go to the bottom of the barrel. Like, you have to either look at your situation and say, we need a closer, okay? So you're going to either say we're going to develop a closer, which I believe you have that guy in Sir Anthony, or you're going to go and you're going to sign the best or one of the best free agent closers on the market. And I'm not talking about a guy that's over the hill or past his prime. I'm talking about like a Josh Hader type. You're going to go after that. You're going to say, you know what? Enough is enough. Stop trying to nickel and dime at that position when you know it's been an issue for 5 years now. Like I said, sorry, I'm just frustrated.
I want to backtrack to your Bilotti thing. While you guys were arguing there, I wasn't listening. I was reading up on Andrew Bilotti and his accident, Mark, just so you know. It was nothing. He didn't do really anything wrong. He was 18 or 19. I forget what it says now on the article. He was 18. It was raining really hard. He lost control of his car. He was not under the influence or anything like that. And he crashed into another person and killed somebody in the car. So he was going to be charged with vehicular homicide or vehicular manslaughter. But the widow of the person that passed away said there was no point. It was just an obvious accident. So he had been in jail for a few days while he was waiting trial or whatnot. They released him. He went on probation for it, and that was it. So he did not do anything egregious. It was just a pure, it's just what it is. An accident isn't an accident. Sometimes is just an accident. So according to the article I just read while you guys were arguing there from the Tampa Bay Times, it wasn't egregious or no comparison to what some of the other, there's no character issue there with him is what I'm trying to say.
Just to clarify, there's no argument. I'm just saying, why are we talking about a guy that's basically a fill-in?
Well, Mark's trying to bring up, some kind of character issue on.
And I wasn't coming in there to say. What I'm saying is, what are we doing? We're talking about a guy that basically his role is the last relief pitcher on this team. We have more problems than that. The problems are Yeris Familia, Corey Knebel, guys that we signed to big contracts that aren't performing. They're the problem, not an Andrew Bellotti who's basically just on the roster to fill out the roster. We don't have people in the real roles that are successful. How are you going to worry about a guy that's realistically not? He's basically pitches when he shouldn't be on the team, but that it is what it is. That's because we have a lack of talent.
Absolutely.
Sorry.
And to go back to what you said, they treat relief pitchers like Eagles treat wide receivers. I think the only difference is the Phillies actually have thrown some money to relief pitchers the last 5 years, like serious money, and every one of those moves backfired. And that David Robinson deal, he's actually pitching very well, and I just read an article that they should target him in a trade deadline trade. So, better late than never.
If they trade for him and then he starts stinking again, then my point that bullpen is cursed will be proven accurate 110%. Because you can't go from being a great reliever, come to Philly, stink and get hurt, leave, become a great pitcher again, and then come back to Philly and stink again and not think that there's a curse. There's got to be. But you talk about, Jason, about the people not performing. It's not just the pitching. We could talk about JT Realmuto not performing. Nick Castellanos in a huge slump lately. JT Realmuto, big error last night. I don't know if you could say it cost the game, but it definitely helped lose the game. And then you got somebody like everything that went wrong last night. Jason, you talk about how streaky this Phillies team is offensively. You wasted Rhys Hoskins. Rhys Hoskins had an excellent game last night. Put the team on his back last night, and you wasted it. So whether it's the bullpen's fault, whether it's JT's fault, whether whoever's fault, I kind of feel bad for Rhys Hoskins, who is busted out of his slump, and then, nothing comes of it.
I mean, I don't want to continue to rehash it as far as the streaky hitter syndrome, but this is the problem, and this is why the Phillies can't seem the Phillies can't consistently sustain success offensively because of that issue. And it's a fact. Like you just said, Rhys Hoskins is now busting out of his slump, but you have JT Realmuto arguably having his worst professional season at least for the Phillies. I mean, I'd have to go back and look at his Marlins career, but he's having a bad year. He really is. And now, can he turn it around? It's still early, but my point is we keep saying, oh, they're going to turn it around. They're going to turn it around. And it's like, here we are. Now we're in the middle of June almost. And, you still have guys struggling. Castellanos is another guy I'm not going to come at Castellanos because I look at his body of work and he's been phenomenal. Like, I just think he's having, once again, I don't know what's going on, but something is wrong with this lineup. Regardless of what happens, you have yet to have a time where all 5 guys are kind of raking. We'll use that term.
Mm-hmm.
You've had Bryce Harper pretty much consistently do it all year. I mean, he goes in little stretches, maybe where he's a week where he doesn't have a home run or whatever, but Bryce Harper consistently performs. But other than that, it's been all of this streaks. Like Kyle Schwarber had probably the worst, first month of the season of anybody in that, probably the worst outfielder as far as numbers wise. Now he's tearing it up. So it's but none of them are doing it together. And we keep saying that, but I don't know if it's possible because, like I said, when are we going to get that? When are we going to get it where we have a week stretch of all 5 of these guys just raking at the plate? I don't know if that's going to happen. That's my question.
One other side note yesterday, I mean, obviously the Phillies did demote Mickey Moniak back to AAA, and I think it's a smart move because he wasn't getting the regular at-bats here. I mean, I would have been giving him the at-bats, but I get why they're not. And like I said yesterday on the show, Odubel Herrera, whether you like his character or not, which most people don't like his character, he's playing well. And Matt Vierling, gives you more position flexibility. If you're not going to get Mickey Moniak every day at-bats, you send him to AAA. And then obviously last night, his first game back starting in AAA, his first at-bat, gets a home run. So there's that.
Not to interject once again, but this is where I think the Phillies are making a huge mistake. Okay. Odubel Herrera should not be on this team. I don't care about if he's doing better at the plate and he provide. No, get rid of him. His character sucks, and there's a ton of fans in this fan base that don't want him here. Get him out. Just remove him. And we said it in day one. Mickey Moniak, if he's going to succeed, he needs to be at bats every game. He needs to be in the lineup every day. Once again, here we are. We're sending a guy back down. It's just frustrating to me how this organization handles these prospects. Mickey Moniak had the best spring of anybody on the team. He got hurt. It was unfortunate, but he did get hurt. Okay? He comes back. He should have that ability to get that job. And for you to just send him to the minors and just override that and say, well, we're going to go with Odubel, to me is an absolute farce. But that's just my opinion.
I agree with you, and I think that's what they should be doing. And Mark, I'm assuming you agree with it too.
Odubel Herrera is a roadblock for any outfielder prospect that you have right now, and he's not going to be part of your long-term plans. And while he may be playing well, and I've said this once, I'm going to say it again, he has a low baseball IQ. He's not very smart when it comes to be a base runner, fielder at the plate. He lucks into a lot of shit, and he's just a bad dude. He's just not a guy that should be wearing the red pinstripes. I agree with Jason on that. And if you have any desire to promote your prospects or to see them flourish, a guy like Vierling or a guy like Moniak or any of the other potential prospects you might have out there, he has to be removed from the situation where your hand is forced. And that's something that Dombrowski and Sam Fold and maybe to a lesser extent Middleton have to have a voice in that and basically make the decision for whoever the manager is by getting Odubel out there and forcing their hand to play the young kids.
Yeah, I mean, I think we mentioned it one day this week. Maybe Odubel is in a trademark. Maybe they're playing him now, hoping that they can get rid of him in a trade. Maybe they're hoping that he stays hot long enough where a team says his 1.5, whatever he's making, $1 million salary this year is attractive for us. Where we need a 9-hole hitter that could play center field and left field, and maybe that's the whole point of it for the Phillies at this point. I don't know. But we agree.
There's nothing to attract other teams. He is what he is. He's been around the league long enough. He's playing exactly the way he's always been playing. There's no need to showcase him. If that's really what they're doing, then get rid of him. Trade him for a bag of balls. I don't care. If Phil, I know you're a Moniak guy. I'm a Moniak guy. I want to see some of these younger players play at the major league level. They can't. If guys like Odubel Herrera and a guy like Didi Gregorius, if these guys are on the team getting at bats and playing in the field, they're blocking the youth movement, albeit a very few of prospects, but they're blocking them. They're blocking. Get them out of here, man.
The problem is if you're right now, the Phillies are average. They're in the middle of the pack. Obviously they fought back. They were way in the hole. If you look at this team right now and you want to have a realistic viewpoint and be honest, is this team really capable of, making the playoffs? I think they could do it. They could make the playoffs as the third wild card. I believe that. But my point is are they really set up to win a championship? And if your answer is no, then you already should be looking ahead. I'm not saying tank the season, but you should be looking at what can you do to better this team for the future. And if Mickey Moniak has a future, and I hope he does because he was a first-round pick that you spent on the guy, then he needs to be on this team at this point in time. He's past the time where he's going to grow in the minor leagues. He needs to be here on the major league level, getting at bats every day.
Jason, I told you this at the beginning of the season or before the season started that I thought Mickey Moniak deserved the spot over even Matt Vierling because you invested a number 1 overall pick in Mickey Moniak. I know Matt Vierling gives you position flexibility. I know Matt Vierling has some potential, and he's just as young. But this organization needs, just for their own, well-being, they need to see somebody succeed that they drafted in the last 5 years. So you should be playing Mickey Moniak. Now, like I said, if you're not going to play him, you send him to the minors so he gets the at-bats, so that he gets some kind of consistency in his swing. But they're making the wrong decision by not playing him every day. And there are people out there saying that he didn't do well in his last stint up here. And I get that, but he didn't play every day. You played him 1 game, then played Odubel 2 games, then played him 1 game, then played Odubel 1 game. You can't get in a rhythm as a 23-year-old young kid when you're playing 1 out of every 3 days. So that's the lineup writer. If anything, that's Rob Thompson's one mistake he's made so far. That and not bumping Knebel just yet.
Go back to what Jason said. Does this team have what it takes to win a World Series? The Braves last year had a terrible regular season. They lost Acuna. They backdoored into the playoffs, and they won the World Series. So the answer is maybe. Maybe if they can get hot with their lineup, anything can happen. Anything really can happen. You got your first 2 starters that should get you automatic wins, and if your lineup is hot, who knows what could happen. So I think you got to look at that as well. But yeah, the team doesn't. It seems like it doesn't have an identity. It's not sure what it wants to do. If it wants to go with the vets, or wants to restart and go with the young guys, or they're trying to do both, I think, and it's not quite working to their potential right now. I think that's the case. I mean, if we can have somebody like Moniak start hitting, it helps. But to Jason's point, like I think he's already proven he could hit AAA. Like let's keep him on the roster and get rid of the roadblocks that are in front of him so he can play.
All right, so we got a BPS business person special today. Kyle Gibson going up against undecided. I'm not sure what undecided stats are at this point. I'm not sure if he's an all-star or not, but he's got a really good little avatar as a picture. Can the Phillies win this series against the Marlins?
They're dodging a bullet because Pablo Lopez is the guy that was supposed to be their starter today. He actually hurt his wrist, and they said he's not going to be available until Saturday. Mm-hmm. Pablo Lopez is actually I'm not saying he's on Alcantara's level, but he's their he's another young. The Marlins are blessed with young pitching. It's like they have a ton of it. We can't find anybody in our system, and they have overloaded. That's who we should be trying to go after, guys on the Marlins, because they have it. But we're dodging a bullet. I don't know who's going to be the starter, but once again, I think if you look at the Rob Thompson era so far, it's been overwhelmingly positive, but the one black eye that we continue to see is the bullpen. And until that gets figured out, we're going to lose games. And Who do you blame for yesterday's loss? I mean, I blame the bullpen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, back to the question, can the Phillies win the series today? They should when you're going up against a bullpen or a random spot starter.
They don't even know who's pitching, and the game's at 1 o'clock. They should win the game.
Yeah, absolutely. I just went and checked Twitter to see if the lineup got released already for the day, but as of now, it still has not been released. All right, let's transition. Let's talk a little something else. Let's have a little fun for the rest of this show. So, Mark, like I said at the beginning of the show, and Jason, listen to WIP. I think it was WIP. What's John Ritchie on? I don't even know.
WIP.
All right, yeah, I was listening to the John Ritchie show. Who's his co-host? Is that the camera?
Yes.
Okay, I couldn't even tell you that for sure. So I was listening to their show on the way home yesterday afternoon to let the dogs out, and they were talking about James Harden, and they were talking about the theory that we just got him too late. If we would have traded for him a year or two sooner. And then the camera brings up it was similar to when the Sixers got Chris Webber to pair with Allen Iverson. And it was just a little too late in his career. He still put up good stats, just like James Harden, but he wasn't the dominant Chris Webber. So I got to thinking, what other times in Philadelphia sports history did we just get the guy a little too late? Just a bad trade where we just got him not at the right time. If we would have got him a little earlier in his career or one season sooner, it would have, maybe helped us a little bit better or whatever. Jason, I know you had one. We were talking before we went live. Mark, is there anybody that you can think of that the the Philadelphia sports teams traded for, and it was just a bust of a trade because we got a shell of the former player that we thought we were getting this great player, but we didn't.
I mean, there are a ton of flyers in the 90s. Jason probably could rattle a bunch off that we got well on their downside of their career. But the guy going to a different sport that's kind of just jumping out at me is Andrew Bynum. Like, that was a guy that I think that had a potential being very, very talented and a missing piece that they needed, and he never played a game for them. So, I mean, that obviously didn't work out. And if you want to go old school, trading Moses Malone for Jeff Rulin was an absolute mistake. Jeff Rulin actually was a decent player, but his knees were shot, and I wouldn't have traded Moses for him anyway, but they did, and it never worked out for them as well. So a couple basketball guys out there that you had some hope, but
yeah, the Andrew Bynum one's interesting because there was a lot of risk reward with the Andrew Bynum trade to begin with because we knew he had back issues and stuff like that. But if he would have been healthy, he would have been. I mean, we saw what he was with the Lakers. I mean, he was a dominant force, and then the whole entire history of the Sixers kind of changed based off of that trade bombing. Because if that doesn't happen, if he works out, the whole process doesn't start. The process started because of how much that Andrew Bynum trade bombed. We don't have Joel Embiid here. We whatever happened in the last 10 years, we don't know. Everything else could have totally changed. Everything could have been different. We could have still had Bynum, Brand, and Iguodala going at it in the playoffs for us. So I think that's interesting. I got an interesting one before we get to Jason's here. I want to bring up. And it's kind of a trade away and then a trade back, or a trade we got, then we traded him away, and then we brought him back again. If we never trade away Cliff Lee, and we have in 2010 Cliff Lee and Roy Halladay, do we win a World Series in 2010? Because if you look at the 2010 Phillies, they were running out there Kyle Kendrick, Jamie Moyer, Joe Blanton. They brought in late Roy Oswalt. So if we bring Cliff Lee back in 2011, do we win the World Series in 2010, or at least get to the World Series for a third straight year? Because that was the year we lost to Cody Ross and the Giants. Do we win that World Series that year if we still have Cliff Lee?
I think they have a better shot.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I don't know if I got to be honest with you, that Giants team was really tough, and Madison Bumgarner was like probably Mr. October. But I think, yes, you definitely would have had a better shot in that in that playoff round. I agree. I think they should have never traded Cliff Lee to begin with. I mean, I think that's the bigger question. Like, why did they trade him? I know that, there wasn't a salary cap in baseball. So it's like almost like that was one of the biggest mind-boggling things. They trade for Roy Halladay and they already have Cliff Lee. Why even trade him?
They were worried about their farm system at the point. So they traded him to replenish the farm system, and they got Philippe Beaumont. I mean, that was the key piece that they got back in that trade. Philippe Beaumont. That's my best French accent I could do right there. That guy was just a complete and total. He was a flop. He was really.
I don't think really, flop was the F word that he was looking for, but
I'm not gonna say it, but yeah. So I actually really truly do believe that the Phillies at least get back to their third straight World Series. If you're running out there, Roy Halladay, Cliff Lee, and Roy Oswalt, and then Cole Hamels is your fourth starter that year, I think you get back to the World Series. I know the Giants were really good. Cody Ross. I mean, you talk about Madison Bumgarner. Cody Ross was a below-average baseball player. He had that series against the Phillies. He had, I don't know, how many clutch hits, home runs, whatever it was. He parlayed that into a huge contract after that, but he was never much of a baseball player after that either. So, I don't know. I think adding one more. What?
Pablo had a big series too.
Yeah. So I don't know. I that was one that when I started thinking about this topic, that really jumped out at me. Jason, I know you got another one on a guy that we got a little too late.
Well, actually, I have a couple, Phil. I want to do that one, but I know. I think the more we do this, we'll remember more. But this one just came to my mind as we were as you were just talking. But it's an Eagles one, and the player, it might have been the biggest bust in Eagles history, and it fits this mold. It's a guy that was at the time one of the best cornerbacks in the league. We signed him in free agency, Nnamdi Asomugha, and then all of a sudden, like, the bottom just fell out. Like, he was just nothing. He was terrible. So he went from being like the highest priced cornerback, rivaled Darrelle Revis at times as far as talent wise. That he was on that level. And he did nothing for the Eagles. And I know a lot of fans
in that time frame, we can name three names from that time frame with the Eagles. You could say Nnamdi Asomugha, Byron Maxwell, and DeMarco Murray. All were elite of the elite. And then we got them, and there's nothing left in the tank. Now, Byron Maxwell, I kind of think I said it when we signed him or brought him here, that it was a big mistake because he was a system cornerback and he wasn't going to fit our system. But he still had a lot of hype. And DeMarco Murray also, a guy like DeMarco Murray, you shouldn't be running in shotgun formation draws and stuff like that. He was an I formation, run him right up the middle kind of running back. So that was more the system as well. But all excellent things. I mean, they're not trades, but they're all guys that we brought in. And maybe if we get them 1 or 2 years sooner, we might have seen a different type of player.
I knew Nnamdi Asomugha was not a Philly guy the minute the word came out that he would eat his lunch in the car at practice. Like, he wouldn't be around his teammates. He would. I mean, that's something like an associate or a mid-level manager does at a large corporation. They go in their car and eat their lunch just to be away from everybody. Like that's when I knew, like, something's up with this dude. Hey, but more power to him. His wife is Kerry Washington, and she's a smoke show. So he's dabbling in acting and things like that now. So, hey, more power to him. Just don't come to any Philadelphia Eagle alumni days. That's all I'm asking for.
Mark's angry.
Mark, do you eat your
Dude,
lunch?
I was really... Yeah, when I was a disconnected employee that hated my job, I went in my car and I ate.
Dude, I can get on a little Dude, can I get on a little side tangent here? Because I know none of my employees watch the show here. I got one kid that works for me now, and he, I guess, got interrupted when we don't have, like, formal breaks. Like, if you want to sit down and eat something on your shift, just do it. And if it gets busy, you got to stop. You know what I mean? And I guess when I wasn't there one day, he had to stop eating his cheesesteak. And he had to get back to work, and I guess it upset him. So now I just found out the other day when he makes himself a sandwich or a pizza, he takes it into the bathroom and eats it in there.
Oh, my God, that's disgusting.
It is, and my bathroom's clean, but that's still freaking disgusting. And I'm like, where did Franco go? I'm looking around, I'm like, he's not in the kitchen. I just saw him make a cheesesteak. Where is he? And I'm like, the bathroom door's locked. Is he literally eating his cheesesteak in the bathroom? He's like, well, I didn't want to be disturbed. I'm like, well, just tell me you don't want to be disturbed, and I'll let you eat your sandwich hot, man. Is that not the word? You think going to your car is a bad way to handle eating your lunch? This kid's eating it in the toilet. Sorry, it's just kids.
So the job that I'm at, the early shift, usually I'll be walking out at like I come into work at like 9, and some of the early shift folks are actually having lunch, and they're all sitting in their car. They're all sitting in their car, and I'm waving to them as I'm going into work because they just don't. They don't want to. They hate everything that is about the company I work for. So I find that peculiar. But yeah, that's why I don't trust Nnamdi Asomugha, and that's why he should not come back to any Philadelphia Eagle Alumni Day. And I'm sticking to it.
I don't know if you got any more, but I'm really struggling to come up with Eagles that we trade because trades are a little different in football than in other sports. You don't get as many trades. I really can't come up with any other trades that the Eagles made that.
I mean, you could.
Maybe
all right, I can say one.
In his career,
I think an Eagles trade. Well, no, it was a free. Never mind. That was a free agent. I was going to say Javon Curse because I know he was instrumental in the 04 team, but then he dropped off a cliff. Mm-hmm. And when we signed him with the hopes that he was like that massive pass rusher that we were missing, and he never became that. But that was also a signing. You're right. It's hard to find trades. I was looking at.
Yeah, that's why I'm allowing your free agents.
I know the Phillies got, but I don't know if it was a trade or a free agent. It was Danny Tartable.
Dude, I have his information up on the screen. I was hoping to close the show with that one. Are you watching my screen here?
I'm not. It kind of randomly came into my mind, and I don't know if they traded for him.
I think he was a free agent signing.
He realistically never played again. When he came to the Phillies and he got hurt that year.
Not realistically, he never did. So in 1996 with the White Sox, he hit 27 home runs and drove in 101 RBIs. Hit 254, had an 830 OPS. Then he comes to the Phillies in 97. He plays in 3 games, has 11 at-bats, 2 hits, both singles, gets hurt, and never plays baseball ever again.
But yeah, so that randomly came. I was reading your mind. I'm reading your show notes, Bill.
Literally, it's on my tab right here. I was prepared for the Danny Tartable one.
The Philly that I remember, and once again, this wasn't a trade, but this is definitely fits that mold of a guy that we signed and kind of, I don't want to say past his prime, but basically wasn't what he was supposed to be, and that's Greg Jeffries. I remember when we signed Greg Jeffries coming at when he was drafted by the Mets, he was like he was basically like a Mike Trout at that time. Like he was basically viewed as like the next, second coming of like the greatest player of that era. And he never became that with the Mets, but he was a decent player. When he came to the Phillies, he signed that mega, it was like a 4-year, it was like the highest contract at the time in baseball. And he just never performed anything near what he did with the Mets. So he kind of fits that mold to what I was thinking, but he wasn't a trade.
I'm looking at Greg Jeffries' stats right now. I didn't even know this was possible. Greg Jeffries, like I know you guys remember the jokes about Ben Simmons. Is he going to win rookie of the year for the 2nd year in a row, the 3rd year in a row? Like he was always people were always joking he was going to win rookie of the year every single year. Greg Jeffries, his first year with the Mets in 1988. He finished 6th in the Rookie of the Year award voting. And then in 1989, he finished 3rd in Rookie of the Year. I don't know if that's a misprint on baseballreferences.com, but they're normally pretty accurate with their stuff. So I guess he qualified but didn't have enough at-bats, so they let him consider him a rookie in his 2nd season as well. So
it's possible.
It's kind of
I remember as a kid, like the Greg Jeffries rookie card was when I used to collect baseball cards, was the card to collect, and that was like the big one. And then when we signed him, it was that 94 season, I think when we signed him, that was like a really, really big deal. But the problem is I don't think we had a position for him on the team. I don't think he really fit anywhere, first base or outfield or whatnot. Just real quick before we close this out, I did want to talk about Flyers because I think they were the king of adding players way too late.
Probably in my mind.
I got two of them, Chris Gratton and Peter Forsberg. Peter Forsberg. You can make an argument that they should have never did the Eric Lindros deal and kept Peter Forsberg and everything else that they had with him. He did play for like 2 seasons here, but he wasn't the same player. And Chris Gratton was a major, major flop. And we ended up trading him back to Tampa Bay, if I recall.
What's it with Tampa? Because Vinny LeCavalier was the same way. He was from Tampa as well.
That's another one, too. That's a good one.
Vinny LeCavalier was the one that on my list.
Yeah, I think we sent him back, too.
And then I said Chris Gratton, and you went, forgot about them.
Before you joined the pre-show, I mentioned his name as well. So, yeah, he was a big flop. I almost want to twist it the other way.
I was just going to say I have one that we traded away that we're kicking ourselves to this day, especially in Flyerland. Because what has been the biggest issue for the Flyers in forever? It's always the goaltending. Well, we got rid of Sergei Bobrovsky, and he won 3 Vezina trophies. 3. Mm-hmm. That might be the ultimate in all of our teams. Like a guy that we just traded and basically.
That might be a segue for another show. Today we're talking about people we got too late. That might be the sign on somebody. Who did we give up on too soon? That might be tomorrow's time. Who have we? And Bobrovsky's a perfect guy. Did we give up too soon on Carter, Jeff Carter? Because he did go to the Kings and win a Stanley Cup, and I think he went to a couple Stanley Cups.
Yeah, but Mark mentioned yesterday why they traded them guys away. They actually traded Jeff Carter and Richards because at the time they were like super partiers, and they were trying to change the culture of that team. Mm-hmm. I don't think it was necessarily that they were traded away because they were bad players. They obviously weren't bad. They helped that 2010 team. Both of them were instrumental, along with Simone Gagne and others, in getting to the Stanley Cup Finals that year. So
Justin Williams of the Flyers, they traded him away, and he won a bunch of Stanley Cups on I think multiple teams, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah,
he's like 75, and he's still out on the ice. I forget what it was. A couple years ago, I was looking at some box score, and I'm like, Justin Williams, is that the same guy that played for the Flyers like 20 years ago? I was like, the dude played like 18 years in the NHL. No lie. He had a very long career in the NHL. So, yeah.
Pat Falloon.
Pat Falloon. Dale Hawerchuk, remember they got him? I mean, he was well over his prime.
We brought back Mark Recchi past his prime.
Mark Recchi was. I would say he still had good runs with the Flyers both times.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting topic here. Now we kind of ran through that topic a little quicker than I thought. Now we got 6 minutes to spare here, guys. So you got to give me more names. You got to give me more information here.
I'm just thinking.
What about Herschel? What about Herschel Walker? Herschel Walker. Remember honk for Herschel to sign him, and they did, and he had a 1,000-yard season in '92. I think they were hoping that you would get the USFL Herschel Walker or the college Herschel Walker. And that really didn't come to fruition. And he ended up becoming like an all-purpose back more than anything in 93 and 94 and a special teamer, kick returner. I think he's a good guy that we got just too late.
Yeah, that's a good one right there.
I mean, you could argue.
It's really hard to figure it out with the Eagles. I mean, like I said, I kind of hinted at it, See, you must have checked in late because I mentioned him briefly. We brought in Art Monk, and we also brought in Irvin Fryer, 2 wide receivers past their prime back in the 90s. And, I mean, I think Irvin Fryer put up some deep
Irvin had 2 really good seasons. But they also brought in Roy Green, who was really good at the Cardinals. Like, we got a lot of guys on their last leg coming in.
Monk was one of them for sure, though. So, but I'm typing in another name. I can't remember if he actually played for the Eagles or not, but I think he did at the very end of his career. So give me a second before I sound stupid. Let me confirm my information here. Yep, there he is. Mark Bavaro, tight end. of the Giants.
He was on
really
the 94 team, I think.
Yeah, we brought him in 93 and 94. And in 94, he had 17 catches for us for 200 yards.
So Mark Bavaro is on record saying that those were like the 2 worst years of his entire career, and he hated playing for Philadelphia.
I got another one for the Flyers that was probably the worst trade that they ever made. It ranks up there, and that was when they got rid of Scott Hartnell. They got R.J. Umberger and like a 4th-round pick back. That's what they got for him. And Scott Hartnell ended up being like, they brought him back, obviously, but he's a guy that they should have never traded to begin with. Like,
so Mark, I want to touch on something real quick here that you said a few minutes ago. The Eric Lindros for Peter Forsberg trade. It should have arguably never happened. How do I phrase this question? What could have been the difference in the Flyers' history? Would we have had a better chance of winning a cup with Peter Forsberg on the team? Do we never get LeClaire and Renberg here? Do we never get the Legion of Boom? What could have been if you go back in time, you don't make that trade, would it have made a difference?
I'm going to say yes, because if you don't trade for Eric Lindros, you don't get the baggage that came along with him. If you remember, he held out and refused to play for Quebec, and his parents, Carl and Bonnie, were ultra involved.
Yeah, I think his dad was his agent, right?
His dad, I believe his dad was his agent, and there was a lot of drama behind the scenes with Eric Lindros. Do you guys remember, like, he was hanging out with Joey Merlino and it claimed that he didn't know who Joey Merlino was, which was not good. Being hungover, was it a Rangers game or something like that? He allegedly was hungover. Like, you didn't see any of that stuff with Peter Forsberg. The worst thing with Peter Forsberg was his chronically broken foot, I believe, and he couldn't find skates that would. Yeah, he was a. How many cups did Forsberg win? Like a couple. I would think that we would have seen a much different outcome, and plus the injuries. I mean, Lindros was hurt half his career here, and
that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at that with Peter Forsberg. 39 games played, 60, 63, 49, 47. He was a great player, but availability is everything in sports, and even with all the games missed, he still was finishing, in the top 10 of MVP. Well, he won one MVP in 2002, 2003, but I don't know if it changes much in Flyers history, just because he was hurt all the time. I don't know. He won those cups.
I'm going to go out on a limb here and say no. It wouldn't.
Jason, what was Colorado's goalie during that run there? What was it?
Patrick Waugh.
Patrick Waugh, that's right. I couldn't think of his
I'm
name.
going to go out on a limb and say no, because I just think it was the rest of the team around the Flyers, because I think the Flyers, had they had better goaltending at the time and better defense, would have won a cup. They should have won in 97, but they went up against the Red Wings, who were basically like Edmonton round 2.
Jason Sullivan.
I mean, the Red Wings had, arguably one of the best NHL coaches of all time. I mean, he was phenomenal. And that was another team that basically was like, we'll call them a dynasty. I mean, the Red Wings were they had everything. They had goaltending. They had defense. Their defense was.
They had all those great Russian players, Sergei Fedorov.
Nobody wanted to go up against that. Any of the. Yeah, they did. That's exactly what they did. Russian players. It was I remember their defense was nobody wanted to face them, because they had those 2 guys at the back end that were just bullies, and nobody would get through there. So I don't know if trading, if I had to do that trade over again, I think Eric Lindros is just a sad fact that he got concussions and ended up out of the league. Had Eric Lindros not had the concussions, I think it would have been a different narrative, because when Eric Lindros was in his prime, there was nobody better than him. I mean, that guy could do things on skates at his size that I've never saw anybody do in the history of the NHL. He was that dominant. And it's just sad that that happened, but it's a good argument. It's a good thing to look at. I mean, what would have happened? But the what ifs in sports.
Yeah. We might have to start making that a daily segment or a weekly segment on the show. What if, and bring up different things that, what if Sam Hinkie wasn't fired, or what if we draft somebody instead of somebody else? Like just the what ifs in sports are always very interesting to me. So, but I think on that note, we're going to wrap up Trending in the AM right here on DSM Media. We'll be back tomorrow, 8:30 a.m. Tomorrow it's just Mark and I. Oh no, I don't know what's going to happen with just me and Mark on the show. Whether he'll look like Princess Leia tomorrow or not. But everybody, thank you for tuning in.
Why are you breaking my balls?
Why not? I mean, that's what I do. That's what we do. We break up, Go get your shine box. All right? Why don't you go get your shine box? All right, Mark? Bring your shine box tomorrow to the show. All right.
Sure.
For Jason Voorhees at Mustang3651, for Mark Moscatelli at Mark with a C. I am Phil Stiefel at Beard and Knowledge. Everybody have a great day. And Phillies, let's go get this win today and win another series and ring that bell.
Yes, sir.